video today. The video today is about a dilemma. It's the dilemma that occurred to me just the other day. I'm walking through the shopping centre and I'm thinking, I should buy some vegetarian food for a change, and I do that, and as I'm walking out the supermarket I see a sign next to the supermarket that says Australian farmers, Australian meat. So I immediately thought to myself, that's what we have now in the world, kind of, is a dilemma with everything, because we will go to do one thing which we think might be a good idea or right or whatever, and then we see that we're indirectly going to hurt someone else, even by doing the good thing or what we think is right or what we think might benefit someone else. In other words, if you don't eat meat because you believe or think that maybe we shouldn't be eating the animals, or even if you do it, selfishly for health, either way, you might be putting an honest, hard-working farmer out of business. So that's what I would call a dilemma, and it occurred to me the other day because it's so easy to think that you're doing perhaps something good or the right thing, or even it doesn't even matter maybe, but then you could be harming someone else. Like I say, I've always sort of thought fairly admired farmers and people who work the land. In fact, I think there should be more of that. That's just my opinion, and so it doesn't actually occur to me when I'm thinking, but I'm also thinking maybe about the cattle and thinking, I don't like to see them be killed for my food either. So it's the dilemma, the farmer versus the cow. What's more important? Are they both not important? Can you win in this world today? That's, I guess, what I'm saying. Is there a solution to what appear to be so many of the problems? Because that's how I'm now sort of looking around and thinking that, sorry if I'm not very coherent or very getting my message across like so many eloquent speakers that I do see on YouTube, and variously, some of them are very good. I would recommend that people watch a lot more. At least open their mind up to things anyway. It's good to do that. It's good to say, hey, perhaps this is another way of looking at things, and then after looking at the video, look around and say, does it have any merit? Like in my real world, in the world around me, how I'm living, what I'm participating in, what is really going on, does this match with what some people might be saying? Because I've watched quite a few and I've sort of said, hey, yes, it does match with what I see around me, and it does match the world, and it's been there for quite a long time, but it's very easy not to notice things too, and then you have to say, is it important? Does it matter? Is this okay with me? Is this the world that I want to live in? Because if you observe something and you ignore it or let it go, that really means that you're saying yes to it. A bit like that cliche old saying, if you're not part of the solution, then you're probably part of the problem, and that's true of all of us, and certainly true of myself over the years too. So, that is really the thing, because if you, if you see things going on and you basically let them go or say it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect me, or I don't care, or whatever, it's the same as saying, yes, I agree to that. So that's the world we create then. So all I'm saying is that, and I've done this most of my life because I've been a fence sitter, someone who just is a bystander, who thinks, even when I see some things that I might not think are great, I think, oh, well, it doesn't really matter that much. And then as the years go by, you see that it matters only in the sense that if it really doesn't matter to you and you're comfortable with that world and you're comfortable with the direction it's taking, then that's okay. It means you've made that choice and you're happy with it and you have to live with it. And that's what I say. If you just let things go, if you do see things that you maybe think not such a good idea, or even if you think, oh, it doesn't matter, then you've agreed to it, so it becomes your world. And so then we will be living in that world, and that world will become more and more like that. So, we have to be careful that that is the world that we really do want to live in. Because things are always changing. Even if you think things seem quite similar to last year or something, you can be sure that things have changed in that time. Life is all a change, always, for the better or for the worst. And so it's a question of deciding each individual human being. Like, I'm not saying even as a group, I'm saying that it's just up to each individual to decide to live the way that is true for them, not to shove it down someone else's throat or to make someone else want to have the same ideas. Like if I decide to, like I mentioned, the vegetarian thing, right? Like if I decide one day, as I did do the other day in the supermarket, where I thought I shall try the vegetarian sausages as opposed to meat sausages, I'm not saying that everyone has to be a vegetarian, and, I'm not even saying that to myself. I'm saying each individual makes a choice on their own way of thinking, their own conscience, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you call these things. But, and even when you do that, like if you're observant, like I say, I was observant because I went in, I bought the sausages thinking, okay, I'll give them a try, even if it was just to sample it for that matter, even if it was just to try it, even if I didn't have any beliefs about the cows or the humans or the farmers or anything, I could still just say, I'll just give that a try, it might be tasty, and actually they were quite tasty. But it hadn't occurred to me in thinking that, I could be saving the cows, that I might be, obviously I'm not killing the farmer, but if everyone went vegetarian, obviously, yes, that livestock industry, now I don't know, you see, when I saw that sign outside the place, it was like focused on an individual farmer, like to where you're thinking, this is a farmer on his land with maybe his little place with some cows, and that's his living. And that then you think, that's kind of sad if he went out of business, But on the other hand, it could well be that if you're dealing on a mass scale, that's like a big sort of thing, and it's just slaughtering animals type of thing by the truckload, and there's no real, obviously people work in these industries, so there are, there would be some people that would, but the way things are going anyway, I really think that if we actually thought about it, every day the world becoming more robotised. In other words, eventually we could have it to where a lot of these people would be out of a job anyway if the world keeps going down, where technology does everything for us, where a robot could do most of the work, even, I'm thinking probably a little bit into the future, but essentially, we could be looking at most of the jobs going to robots or artificial intelligence type thing. So that but we don't seem to be worried about that. We're quite happy to go down that technological path quite easily to where people would be out of work. Everyone would be. But like I say, that's just what I call a dilemma. The thing of where sometimes whatever choice you make, there's going to have to be a sacrifice. Sometimes that's the way the world is set up, which I don't agree with it, because I want the farmer and the cows to be happy. An alternative of some sort. Actually, I have no problem whatsoever with naturally with cows and farmers, like with the milk and chickens for eggs and all that sort of stuff, that to me is okay. But even that has to be to where they're looked after, because there's a double side to that too. That if you have chickens and cows that are in a mass-produced kind of thing where they're uncomfortable, they're not free to eat and be happy, as has been shown to me. If I consume that food from that unhappy animal that's traumatised and not in a good, that food is unhealthy for me. So it's beneficial for us to have healthy animals, happy animals, because then if we do consume them in any way, they are also healthy. The other way, even if we're eating a good piece of meat, or even if we're drinking good milk, if that animal is in a traumatised state, not living a happy life out in the pastures and all the rest of it, you know what I'm saying, that meat and that milk is contaminated. It is not going to be healthy for me. So there is that element to see. There's all these elements for us all to consider, really, which even I hadn't considered till quite recently. You kind of, even if you think, it's not such a good thing anyway, just for the animals, it's also not good for us. So even if you're a selfish person and you don't give a damn about animals, even for yourself, you are poisoning yourself with that traumatised animal meat, milk, eggs, whatever you get from it. It's no good. You may as well be eating something else, because it will ruin your system. But anyway, I'm going to go off that subject. I was just talking about the dilemma because it just occurred to me that, and this could apply to so many situations. It certainly seems to me to be the case with so many things. I could mention a million things where there is a dilemma. The way the things are in this world now, everything seems to be set up to where whichever way you do things, someone has to lose, or something has to lose because of the setup of things, in a way, the way we have just organised the world, I think. And even if we even just organised our own little spaces around us even. I was only thinking, I mentioned robots. I'm going to ramble again just a wee bit, but then I'll try to make it brief, because it's just coming to me as I'm going along. But even like, it occurred to me, like we talk about robots and AI and I just like to say this. This is just what I think, and, take it with a grain of salt, anyone who's listening. But, I sort of heard someone talk about so-called humanists. and humanist, futurist, that type of person that thinks that the future is going down the road of making humans more AI, more advancing that way, putting themselves into that artificial type of body, or whatever, I'm not quite sure, but that kind of mindset. And I personally think that humanists are not human at all. Humanists are anti-human humanists. Humanists are anti-human because they're going against the human condition and they're going along a robotic, artificial way, which, just personally, I think that is like taking in the food that is contaminated that I'm taught, that I've mentioned. They think that, I can see where they're coming from, they think that will give them longer life, superiority in some way, an advancement of their mind in some way. They think it will better them, and they get obsessed with that kind of future. They're not happy with their present state because they refuse, like we all do, and like is hard to do too, because in today's world, to advance our own mind naturally, and it is hard because it's an artificial world we live in now too. But I think that I'm probably not a good advertisement for it, by the way. They probably look at me and say, hey, there's a good example for going down the artificial intelligence and putting our mind into a robot and whatever, because look at her, she's and that's true, because I'm old and I've learned I'm only learning this stuff too late, and I'm just saying what I think, but I do think that those sort of people, I can see where they're coming from, and I can see that a lot of people would be attracted to it, but I do think it is like taking in the poisonous food from the traumatised animal. That also is another area where humans think the grass is green, but it's not. It's the opposite to what they're. Well, actually, it's almost like they're to me, they're indirectly seeking total death, and yet they think that they're going for total life. They think they're going for an extended life, eternal life even, why not go from one cyborg body into another over centuries, 1,000 years, whatever. But actually, it's death of what they are as a human. Not only as a human, but they are a human, so it is actually death. They think they're seeking life, eternal life, and advancement of their mind, but actually it's a takeover of their mind, and it's death in the body, because once you start transferring from one to another, and your mind is taken over by artificial intelligence, and it's a gradual death. What you are as a human, in another 1,000 years, you actually will not exist at all. There will be a robot there, but that will not be you. There won't be any more you. In other words, it would almost be the same as just getting a gun and shooting yourself and leaving behind a robot that someone else has made. It's kind of ridiculous to say it like that, but that transference over time will lead to that. The first time they transfer into the robot body or the interface with the brain and the mind, there'll be a little bit of death of themselves. There'll be a partial death. The next time there'll be half, 3/4, finally death. So what I'm saying is, to me, there is the futurists, the humanists, or whatever you want to call them, They're anti-human, they're anti-future, they're actually pro-death. But they think that they're pro-life. They think they're extending life by an artificial means. But that's exactly it. It is artificial. It's not them. It will not be them. It will be a totally different entity. They will not even be, by the time the transference takes place over time, they will not even be conscious. There will be no consciousness. It'll be like saying me. It will not be me. It will be a totally other entity. I will be dead. There'll be a robot body there functioning that's used portions of my mind to keep it functioning. But me as a person, I will not even be aware of the fact that I have progressed into a robot body. There'll be no awareness of anything. I will be a robot. And my human, as I am as an entity now, that will be the same as if I just got a gun and shot myself in the head. In fact, it would probably actually be more of a blessing than to have that sad, to see a human deteriorate. It's a bit like watching someone die from Alzheimer's or some slow degenerative disease. That's what it is when you go along the futurist humanist line of artificial intelligence or putting yourself into a cyborg type body, anything like that. It's like dying slowly of a disease. It's the equivalent of Alzheimer's. In fact, it is very much equivalent to Alzheimer's in the brain, where the brain is slowly taken over by another entity, the artificial intelligence entity. There will be no person left. They would be actually... If I went into another realm about it, they would actually be better off dead straight away, because there will be no comeback from the robotic AI future either. So if anyone who, anyone who actually thinks in terms of any sort of humanity, any sort of value of themselves as an individual or as a human being or as just an entity even, as whatever they are, whatever they think themselves to be, that would be totally dead once an artificial entity is put into the mind or into the brain. That's the dog. He's a little bit mind controlled too, because in reality we are quite taken over by technology now. In other words, even now we even have some of our so-called brilliant minds, like I won't mention any of the scientists' names personally, because I don't particularly have a lot of confidence in them at all, because like if you get some of your top people saying, oh well, I think that at best the future we can only be house cats, but I'm quite happy to be a house cat. I heard someone say that, and I thought to myself, that's just like saying, well, I'm controlled, and I don't mind being controlled as long as I'm a looked after controlled house cat. Which is kind of tragic, I think, really, because it's kind of saying, well, look, we've already been taken over by everything around us to some extent, to quite a large extent probably, and so that's probably where the humanists and the futurists are actually thinking along that line. See, they actually don't think it's taken far enough, but actually they don't realise they're already been taken over, and that's the problem with them. They've been taken over too, I think, because that's why they think like that, because they've been presented with the technology, they've got obsessed with it, fascinated with it, and think, oh, that's the future. That's my survival. That's what it is, and they're actually already brainwashed, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I believe they're actually brainwashed and titillated by the idea, and tricked by the seduction of it, the promise of it. Personally, I think it's just like us all signing our own death warrant, and we're already not doing. A lot of people are not. The world is already lost quite a lot of its freedom to think, because the human mind actually is capable, I think, of quite a lot more than what we realise, and what we've been limited, very limited. We limit ourselves, and we let computers tell us that we're even more limited, because they're like, hey, oh yeah, we can tell you something faster than you can, but they're not thinking. They're programs, and they're programming us. We're becoming programmed too, because we're not thinking for ourselves. We're not using our master computer, because I think the human brain is a master computer that's operating at 5%. I know mine's probably operating at 1%, and I actually realise that, But, some are operating a bit better than others. They are, but I still think most humans, their brain is unlimited, and it's not being tapped. Instead, they're using an artificial, programmed, limited computer and thinking that is the future. That is death to the human being, to the human brain, to the whole human being. Because if we really opened our mind and used 100%, then we would really see what's going on, and therefore we would be able to realise that we could extend our own life, not by going into a cyborg body, but naturally, because we are, I believe, and I do believe this. Like, I think I could be dead tomorrow, probably will be. I should have lived to at least 90 odd, I believe. That's actually in my thing, but it won't happen because of the environment we live in today. But I think even that is a very limited life range for what human beings should really have. I believe that, but I can't prove it. But it's something to think about, that I think that if we really did have all the knowledge that we should have, if we were using our full mind, we would know what is causing us our physical problems, so we wouldn't need to think about replacing our body artificially. It would naturally live a really, really, really long time. And I think probably at one time this might have even been the case if we go back far enough. This can't be proved. I think some people might know it, but I can't prove it, and our history doesn't show it to us. But then again, our history is limited, and there again, it's all a program, so the history is probably would not be correct anyway. So this is something that I've said before, that if everything is a program, and therefore everything is a program, which means it's like our world everything that we see around us is presented to us. Like when we watch the TV, we watch it, we believe what we're watching, but we don't really know if it's true. We presume it to be true because it's there in front of us, and it's a program. It's a movie, and the world is a movie too, because most of what we see and presented to us is not actually what is probably, how shall I say, well, a bit like I was saying about the, presuming that our future, like the futurists or the humanists think the future is a certain way. That's what they're programmed to think. That's what they're told. That's what they're seduced with. And it's the same with us. Whatever is put around us, we believe to be true, and we think that's the way. We never stop and say, hey, but oh, that's right, perhaps if I eat this, it will do me good, if they tell me it'll do me good. But do I really know that? Like, that's what I'm told. So I believe what I'm told. In other words, we've based our whole world on the trust of what is put around us and what we're told. But what if that is not correct? What if it's a movie, it's all a computer generated kind of reality? That, because if we're watching the computer and we're watching the TV and we're watching, and all that information comes from this, it's a computer generated world. So that computer is being fed stuff. So who is feeding the computer? Where does the information come from? So what I'm saying is that, if you're just because you're fed something on a screen doesn't mean that that is actually what is the best option. You should consider it, but it could be totally false. It could be totally bad for you. It's like if you're watching some TV show. It shows you how to live. It tells you what's fashionable, what's current. Like you watch it and you think, oh, that's. After a while, you watch enough of it and you start to think that's attractive and that's the normal way you should think and the normal way you should act. Even our behaviours seem to be not based on what we actually think ourselves, but what we're shown on a movie, a TV thing. And this is how I see it, because I have seen people change over the years, because I've lived long enough to see that people now act and think quite differently to what they did even 30 years ago. They wouldn't know that because it's a gradual thing. It's a gradual thing. It's like a conditioning by the whole of the world or by society. And society itself thinks that they're part of it and that they've got control. They do. They let it happen, like I say, but they're not always instigating it. They're just accepting it. Like it's not always their idea. But when someone else puts the idea into their head, they go along with it. And so then it does become reality, their reality. And like I say, the whole world is very much built on trust, that everything that all the information we get, that what we see around us is all good for us, and that we should think like they tell us to, that we should think like we shouldn't question anything. And these days you can't even say, like even if it's not even whether you agree or disagree, but you can't actually pose the question, yes, that, like I've had a few discussions with people, just a few discussions, not much, because, I always get the negative back. They immediately come back these days and will sort of say, like if someone says something what does appear to be quite bad, you might, like someone said, what shall I say, they were talking about, like they were talking about like homosexuality or something, and saying, we just had the vote for the gay marriage type of thing, and it was yes, of course, but before that there was some sort of campaign where some people were opposed to it, which is their right, to say what they think, and they're like, oh, gay marriage, what next? Will we be having sex with animals? Will we be having sex with children? Will we be having this or that? You know what I'm saying? And someone said to me, oh, what an insane thing for that person to say. And offhand, you probably would say that. And it's not a question of whether you think, it's okay or not for people to go with same sex or the opposite sex or any sex. It's more a question of, it's not a question of whether the actual issue or the actual vote is correct or not, because it could be quite correct. But there is a consideration. It's worth considering that sometimes when one thing happens, something else can happen, even though they're not connected. And that is an interesting. I thought it was. I was open to saying, well, look, it sounds like an awful thing to say, and that's true. But there is that consideration, because if you notice that people change over time and society changes over time, often that is the case. That what appears to be a good thing, you vote for something that you think is good. That's what I'm saying. It's a bit like the dilemma. It's a dilemma. Everything's a dilemma, like the dilemma of, do I buy the vegetarian sausages or the meat sausages? If I buy the vegetarian sausages, I save the cow. If I buy those, I hurt the farmer, maybe. If I buy the meat sausages, I help the farmer, but I kill the cow. Do I kill the farmer? Do I kill the cow? It's a dilemma, and it's the same with that. Sometimes everything is like that. I know I'm getting a little bit crazy in what I'm saying, and you've probably lost me, and I think I've lost myself, to be quite frank. I really do, but I'm hoping that maybe someone else might be able to make a little bit of sense out of it and just consider. All I'm saying is that things should be considered. But just to be careful that when you vote for one thing, because it's not about the voting for the one thing, it's about don't let it slide. That's right. Like, don't think because it's okay to do one thing, and that because sometimes that can be, like I say, we're programmed. The programmers will put more onto us because they are trying to, I think that they're not interested in us being happy, having relationships with who we want. They're not. I don't think they're interested in us having the freedom. That's what I'm saying. I see this world as becoming less free, not more free. So it's kind of funny that although we get votes for some things like that, so that we're free to, go with who we want and that sort of thing, but we seem to get a lot of restrictions on our personal freedoms otherwise. So I find that a bit of a contradiction. So I'm not saying what's right or wrong about any of it. All I'm saying is that we should be very careful to watch all these things, because I think that as everything is a program, and we are programmed with all this stuff, because even the fact that we have to think about it, like that we have to vote on these things, we have to think about it, we have to be considering all sorts of things that we wouldn't normally have to consider. Because I say each individual should just be living their own life. So, who goes with who is up to them. I don't think it should become where we make big things about it. If we are going to make big things about it, make it to where it's not just, because it's no good being a free gay person, being able to get married, if the powers that be are going to restrict even their personal freedoms, to where they, are manipulated and spied on 24/7 when they're around. You know what I'm saying? That the world is becoming less free. So regardless of them giving us these fake freedoms, these fake options, I think. This is my opinion, because they only give it to us on a few little things. And is there not some trick to it? Is there not something to where they want you then to become less of a thinking person, to where you degenerate a bit? Because I wonder about that. I'm just saying that that regardless of what your denomination is in any way, we should all just, as human beings, watch out for our safety, watch out for our freedoms, not think because we do get given a few little, and even that has taken a long time. Like, if you really consider a lot of these things, even the few things we do get, why do they give them after so long? Because we've been programmed to go against a lot of these things all in the past. So it is a bit of a joke. And, we see that as progress too, but I wonder, I don't think there is any progress. I think everything's a program. I think that we only get what we're allowed to get. And there's a reason why we get it. That's what I think. I think it's all a big program, a big manipulation of the futurists, the humanists, all the different genders, all of us in every single way. It's certainly been for me, and it's been all my life. I've only just realised it now that it's too late, but, it may be too late for us all. I do not know. I can only assume that at least if we see a few things and just think about a few things, just observe even, that maybe there might be some chance for us to really go into the future and take back us as humans, take back the world, because I think that that world is being taken from us. And technology is taking it from us too, because that they talk about all these things like it's out there, like everyone talks about it. It's all in your face. Will artificial intelligence take over? Has something else already taken over? Has not technology, or what's behind the technology? Because technology is only what is behind the user. Technology is not a real thing. Artificial intelligence, robots and things are not really real. They're controlled by what is so-called real. And when I say so-called real, that's another question too. But by that I mean with any sort of human intelligence behind it, but or some intelligence behind it. Like I've said before, a lot of the humans that rule the planet are not really human, in the sense that they are not, they do not care for other human beings. Quite a lot of the ones that I see around, even people that we might even admire or think are okay or harm, a lot of them that we think even are harmless. Anyone that has any influence or that is out there in your face has an influence. And I don't care who it is, whatever field they're in, even if they appear to be, if you are aware of them, they probably are having an influence. They've probably got some importance, some power. And I do not think that most of the people that we see in front of us actually are human, in the sense that they care anything about the fellow human beings. They pretend to. A lot of them, I see a lot of them, they go and to the third world countries and do their little things of trying to help, supposedly. This is all a program too. It's all a program so that then you trust these people, because this world is based on trust. And I think that it is a world based on trust that basically is built on nothing. It's built on quicksand. It's built on quicksand. That trust is quicksand. It'll take you right down. In every single area. That's how I see it. And that's how I've experienced it in recent times too. So I know it to be a kind of truth, in fact, but it doesn't have to be. And human beings are very valuable, but they are losing that value. They're letting that value be taken from them. And even the smart people are going along that line, because that's all I think there is. That's what they think their options are, whereas in reality I think that behind the scenes there are a lot more options, but we do not see those options. Like, why would you put yourself into a cyborg body if you could completely regenerate the body that you actually have? You wouldn't consider it. You wouldn't consider allowing your brain or your mind to be taken over by some other intelligence if you knew that your brain could be at a much higher level and a much superior level to any artificial robotic thing, despite what they tell you. This is what I believe. But I'm just, a silly person, and, I'm sure you think that, and it sounds all ridiculous, but I'm just putting it out there, that that's what I think. It's not what I am. My body's finished, my mind's at 1%, but this is not what I believe that humans are meant to be at. And I do think that the human body was meant to be able to live a long, long time on this actual planet, this actual Earth, whatever you want to make it to be. I'm not going to go into that because I'm not 100% sure myself. I haven't got to the bottom of it. Maybe before I drop dead I might. I don't know. I'm not even sure that I want to know sometimes, But the thing is that I do, even this, it's hard. But at the same time, I would have went for some of this stuff myself a few years ago. I would have thought, hey, that's the way to go. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't we want to keep going on? Why wouldn't we want to put ourselves down the line of advancing ourselves along a technological line? I would have went with that myself. I would have thought, hey, that sounds like a very good idea. I do not think that now. I think the complete reverse. I think it is death for the human race. Completely. And also, I do not think it would benefit anyway. I do not think that it has any real benefit, not if the real reality is that there are really more options available to human beings that they are not aware of, that the human mind is the greatest computer that is not used. Look at me. And the human body in its natural state in conjunction with everything, and should be able to regenerate itself. And actually, if there wasn't bad external forces on it, it would be, even in today's world, if there were not external things put onto the human body, it would be living much longer naturally than what it does, and staying young much longer naturally than what it does. It may hardly deteriorate much at all if it was not being bombarded with so much. The environment the human body lives in is an alien environment, and becoming more alien. But don't get me wrong here. We humans are not the cause of it. We will blame ourselves for it. We'll say, maybe there's a bit too much pollution, so maybe that's my fault anyway. Believe you me, I do not believe that either. It's all a computer program. And that's putting it bluntly, and it's not explaining it, so it sounds ridiculous, but it is all out of our control. This is not our world anymore. It probably hasn't been for a long, long time, but it's getting to the point now where it's become blatantly obvious, shall we say, even to a fool like me. And also the fact that we are now considering drastic measures, and that we would go down a line of being taken over by an artificial world, even though it already is artificial, because it's already, as I say, we're not controlling it, and it's computer generated, and it's generated even by the humans that are ruling the world. If they are not human, if they have lost their humanity, and their mind has been totally taken over to where they have no actual feeling, all the prominent people in the world, all the people that you see there that are out there, they have a fake personality. They fake being human, in my opinion. They are not human anymore. Most of them have been taken over by a mindset. All the emotional parts of their mind have been closed down. They're blocked. And a lot of human beings are operating that way now too, because of the frequencies and the whole planet being bombarded. And the frequencies, it blocks off the ability of the human mind to function at its optional thing. And also we're being told that intelligence is more valuable than the emotion, than the feelings, than the intuition, and all those other things that are gifts to human beings. That's what makes human beings, if there is anything in this universe at all, that is their superiority. The intelligence and the technology is commonplace, I think, as far as this universe goes, because it's probably even made of all that. So it's actually nothing. So if there's anything unique that makes it special, that is being taken from us, so that will become controlled robots, which we half already are. We half already are, because if we believe everything that's presented to us and we go along with everything, And like I say, if the people that rule the world, if everything that we admire and are controlled by and even follow is not human and has lost not only their liking for the other humans, because if you had like a king or something that just looked upon all humanity as just his slaves, just to do the work for him, but he actually thinks of them, yes, like cattle, just like the cattle that we eat. Like I was saying, it's all a perception, isn't it? Like, it's like, do you value that life? And if you do not value that life, and you don't even see it as life, as just a commodity for you to control and to manipulate and to use, then you're not human. And I'm not going to say whether there is anything else to that, because I think there is obviously a lot more to this. This is just putting it at a very basic level, that humans can be taken over. They can gradually change their whole mind and personality over time. If it gets taken over by a wrong way of thinking and by ideas and conditioning over time, to where they lose their real feelings. Because to my way of looking at it, even if you have lost quite a bit of that, because I wouldn't say that I'm this wonderful person that vaguely gets around like all these people pretending to do good, and that's only to get people into where they don't see that they're really taking your time, your money, your energy, manipulating your way of thinking. It's a bit like if you're like a celebrity or something, and hey, I've been guilty of that. You tend to then think, oh, if they do a few good things, that then you like them, and so you then watch all their mind control movies or their mind control videos and all the stuff where then they have got you. It's like that. It's like, if I want you to like me, I've got to do something that will entice you to like me, and then to get you to follow the way that I want you to be, or to follow my ideas, my agenda, like what I'm trying to really do. It's like if you wanted a relationship with someone and that person is really a lot different to you, like if you were a bit of a psycho type of person and you wanted to pull in a nice, soft, kind person, because you'll get a lot of great energy out of that, you have to trick that person, because you have to then pretend to be like that person. Because if they saw you as a psycho straight off, a cold-hearted killer type of thing, that person's going to run a mile. They're not even going to say hello, because they know their survival depends on getting away from that manipulation, because they know if they get hooked in, that it's not going to be good for them, is it? It has to be to where that person, if they're of that mindset that they're out to control, they're out to take from you, they're not going to give you. They will start out giving you to entice you in, to seduce you, and that's the way of things, and that's the way of the power. That's the way of people who are prominent too, that rule the world. That's how everything works. But unfortunately, if it's not genuine, if what you're saying is not genuine, you're not only giving them money, shall we say, like giving them their luxury and their better life than yourself, but you're also giving them your energy and allowing them to manipulate your way of thinking, to where they're basically taking over your whole thing, because once someone takes over your thinking and changes, even if someone makes you change the way you dress, they've had an impact, haven't they? Like you might say, it doesn't matter. Well, maybe that's not that important, but they're still changing. That shows that they've got that little bit of power. And then if you have more power than that, like I often say to, I say to my son, about the tattoos and stuff. How this world has gone from where only 1 in a billion person had a tattoo, and it was kind of half looked down upon, and now every person in the world seems to have a tattoo. And I have to say, where does that come from? Like, I mean, I don't think it matters, but at the same time, it matters in the sense that why is that so? Like, not a question of the actual thing, but it's a permanent procedure, it's a painful procedure, and I kind of say, why has everyone now got a tattoo? Because most people do seem to, and a lot. And I'm saying this is because of mind manipulation and influence by celebrities and people who have that power to tell us how we even should present ourselves. That we should, yes, brand ourselves permanently, you know, like a cattle with a branding line, almost, you could say. I mean, that's putting it dramatically, but it's the principle. And, you know, it's not a question of saying, oh, I like that tattoo or this or that. It's why so many now, and I say it's because of, it's not because just I have just decided out of my own self to do that after 20, 30 years, or even if it was today. It's not. It's because of what you are told is acceptable, it's fashionable, or that you see other people doing it. You know, you see... I'm not going to mention names because I'm sure that if you're living in the world, you know that a lot of people that are in the public eye, shall we say, do this sort of stuff. And perhaps you even have to ask why they do it, why so many of them now do it, what their agenda is, because they do it, so you will do it. That's how I see it. You know, they don't get any money out of it, but they get a power and an influence. And I say, what's behind that then? Are these people also being manipulated? You know, because they're branding themselves too. You know, like you see these really pretty women with all these gross tattoos all over themselves, you know. And that's another thing. We're being mind conditioned to think that it's not gross, that it's actually pretty and cute and nice and this and that. And okay, so sometimes it doesn't look so bad, but most of the time it is. Really, and what's the point of it too? Like, there's no point to it, you know. There's no, you know, and like I say, it's not like changing you. You know, it's not like, you know, don't look at me because I don't care less. But it's not like putting a T-shirt on one day with a star on it and saying, I'm sick of the star, I'll put a circle on it the next day, I'll put a square the next day. You can't do that with a tattoo. So it's like it's there forever, you know. Like it is a real conditioning control thing, I think, you know. So it goes beyond like a fashion even. And I just don't think people even actually question why. They just go and do it. And like I say, it's not actually a pleasant process. So, you know, like even if you did want to put something on your skin, you know, why would you want to put something that's painful to put on that's permanent? Like, why wouldn't you just have like a sticker or something, you know, like things that, you know, because I'm sure they could do that. And then if you got sick of it, and also, you know, like I was saying to my son, like most people are scared to have even an injection, and yet they'll go down to a tattoo parlour and endure all that sort of stuff, you know, to be branded for bloody life. To me, you know, that's I've observed that because I was in the era where a tattoo was only worn by a criminal bikie type thing. So it's kind of like now, it's now, and it's gradual. There again, everything is very gradual. Starts with a few people with a few tattoos. You see them just random. I used to notice that I thought it was okay on a few people myself. I didn't think twice about it. Then I noticed more and more and more, and I sort of thought, oh. And now I just see it everywhere I go. I can't go out without seeing, without seeing people and they're people in all walks of life too. It's not like they're just pop singers or they're just like a heavy metal or some particular type. There's no type. It's like old, young. It's quite like myself. Like, I mean, I'm far too old for all that. Even if I thought it was okay, like I would say, hey, I'm too old, but they don't seem to even a few older people. But basically, that's another thing too. It does look a bit ridiculous when you get old too, but they don't think of that either. But it's not a question about the actual issue. It's the mindset behind it I'm talking about. It's the control. It's the fact of why people do it And it's not their choice, I do not believe. I think it is like something that's swept over things because of the amount, and I think it's been programmed into it. That's what gets me, because I could not care less. You can, I think that the individuality is freedom and individuality are the two biggest things, I think. They're the only thing, they're the things that we're losing in this world. So I'm not against, anyone who wanted to do something outrageous if it really was their own idea and something unique. But this is not their own idea. This is not unique. This is a widespread mass mind control thing, I think, because it's like the ice bucket challenge. Do you remember that? Like that was like the powers that be, or the controllers, I think, whoever they are, whatever they are, saying to everyone, look, we'll show everyone how silly we can all be, because we will get everyone to pour the ice over their head, look stupid, make themselves cold in the wintertime, and it'll just prove a point that we can basically get humans who are more intelligent than us, because even the people who control these things, I don't think they're necessarily smarter than most of the people on the street. They've got knowledge and technology which they can use, but they're not smarter. They just, and because they've got all this knowledge, that makes them smarter. But humans, if they were operating at a capacity, could probably be the average even human, could be operating probably at a smarter level. I think, this is just what I think. So so I'm not saying, but that was just a test. These are all tests. So they laugh at us for doing the silly things. And I know that some people say it's just a joke and whatever, and it is a joke, but it still shows how easy it is to get humans to go along with everything and anything. Everything and anything. I could have done it myself, and I probably would have thought it doesn't matter. But that's because I never stopped to say why. Just stop and say why, because that's what people even would have done probably even a few years ago. I think they probably would have said, why? Why would I do that? Like, it's cold, I'm not going to pour the ice over me. Like, it's not funny. I'm not going to dirty my clothes. And it's the same with tattoos or anything you like to make. These are only small things, because in reality, this world, we are manipulated in more than just little tiny things. Little things show you that if they can manipulate you on little things, and we can be convinced to do silly little things, and that we accept everything and anything. But basically, the sky's the limit. They could, we could be allowed. We would allow ourselves to pretty much be controlled and manipulated by anything. And even the smart people, much smarter than me, are going along with all of this. They're in the trap too. Everybody's in this trap, I think. And the only way, if there is a way out, which I don't know if there is or not, but if there is a way out, you're certainly not going to get out of it by not at least thinking about it, and at least occasionally saying, hey, look, I don't think that's a good idea, because that's what you are as a human. If you're just going to let the artificial intelligence take over your mind, or the powers that be take over your mind and say, no, we'll decide for you. We'll say what's good for you. Even though you know that they don't even like you, they don't care about you. Like I said, most of them are not even human. They're human in human form. They look human, like myself. They look probably even more human. They even appear to do some more human things. But it's a bit like, I don't know. I could be wrong. I might have heard it wrong. But I couldn't believe that someone got the Nobel Peace Prize, and I'm not going to mention names, that someone got the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm thinking, these people got the Nobel Peace Prize. And, sorry, I'm human, I need a drink. But I don't want to be a robot that doesn't drink or eat, because it's one of the few little pleasures left in life, if nothing else, even if some of the stuff ain't so hot, But yeah, it's a bit like, you give a Nobel Peace. Would you give, these days it's got to the point where I'm sure Adolf Hitler would have been given the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm sure. They would have said, hey, what he was trying to do was make a unified world. He wanted a superior race where there would be no wars, no fighting, no problems. Everyone would have superior intelligence. Everyone would be healthy and looked after. They would be a mind-controlled, manipulated master race of zombies. But they would, yes, they would think they were superior, and they would never fight because they would be under total control, and so he should be given the Nobel Peace Prize. And on the surface of it, that makes sense, but we might have to we might have to get rid of all the other people that don't fit that bill or that we can't make into that robot, first. But hey, peace is the ultimate aim. It's like everything else, we've got to clean up this planet, we've got to do all these things, because the ultimate aim will make for this wonderful world populated by robots, where whoever is pulling the strings, has control over these, and, we'll do it all in the name of the planet and of peace and stuff. Of course, we might have to get rid of quite a lot of the animals and control them too, but we won't tell everyone about that because we really don't like animals and birds and the wildlife either. We just pretend to care, and we don't really care that much about the environment. It's, as long as we've got our little comfortable space, and we can clean that up anyway. We clean that up for ourselves after they're all gone, but we won't tell them about that. We'll get our brooms out because we actually do have a bit of technology. We're not really, we've controlled everything else by technology, and we won't bother telling them that we also perhaps might even been smart enough to invent a bit of technology for the environment too. And in fact, perhaps some of the things that we do are not so good for the environment too. I mean, but we give the humans their little polluting cars. We could give them other things that don't perhaps create pollution, but then they wouldn't be able to blame themselves for the environment. So that'd be no good. So we better wait till we've got our master race, our peace. Adolf Hitler. We'll give our peace prize then to Adolf Hitler, the controllers that be, and everything will be fine. I think I've rambled too much. I'm sure you've lost me, but I think you see what I'm saying is that I think it's like an end goal, and that's what a lot of these futurists are thinking, but they won't be part of it. They just think they will. Humanists, futurists, all these people, everyone basically thinks they're going to be part of this great new peaceful world, but they won't be part of it. They won't exist anymore. Even if they have a part of their shell of their body, that will not be them. It will be. This is all a control thing. The control thing will be here. Even some of the control thing, I think, will probably defeat itself in the long run. But I'm not going to go into that. I can't, because I think that once you I won't go into that because it goes into another thing that might be it's even a bit too complicated for me at the present time. But just keeping it as simple as possible, that dealing with the world as we see it, assuming that what we see is what we see, even though we must know that we only see a little bit. I mean, would I know what a scientist has really developed? Would I know if a scientist, right now has the cure for every single disease that there is? I wouldn't know. They give it. I would get it when it suits when it suits them to give it to us. Because they might have to say, oh well, we've got to test this or that. But either way, I don't think we should even have all these things. I think they are all environmentally caused things, which I do not believe that if humans do create, we create the problem only in the sense that we go along with what is pushed onto us. Like I say, we're given the ice bucket challenge and we can say no, but we usually say yes. And then we get the blame for it. But we don't invent it. We don't invent these things. We didn't invent the computer even. You know, the average person, in fact, most of the human race did not invent the computer. We've adopted it, we've accepted it, we've brought it into our home and into our life and onto us and into us, and we're seduced by it now. In fact, we've made it a necessity because we've become dependent on it. But we didn't actually choose it in the first place. We didn't invent it. We were gradually enticed into it. And now it's become an evil necessity, in my opinion. The same with you know, having cell towers everywhere and all this stuff around us. It's all something that we accept because we have. It's like a television set. We didn't invent it, but it was presented to us. We got seduced by it, and now we're mind controlled by it. You know, our whole way of looking at things is governed by all these things. Even our perception of the world, our perception of people. And is it real though? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. You know, I mean, maybe I'm not real, maybe I'm out of touch. I'm sure I am, but that's to be expected in the world because it's to me it's confusing, and but I still say it's not a, you know, it's, you know, I know myself. I've watched TV for years and years and years, and it's only recently that I realised that it can actually make you think a certain way about yourself and about other people. The characters that you see, even on a TV show, it's so easy to think after a while that that is the way that you should be. If you see them doing a particular thing, you say, oh, okay, that's okay, this is... And you never actually stop and say, like, why are they doing that? They wouldn't have done that 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Why are they doing it now? Why is this acceptable now? Why do they behave that way? And you don't... see, I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I'm just saying that you don't actually question the changes. And why are they presenting that? Why do we get indoctrinated with it, just like we get indoctrinated with our view of the world? Like, you know, these days some people say, oh, is the world flat or round? Well, that kind of sounds weird too, doesn't it? Because I've seen that now and I'm like, oh, would that have even been a question? But some people are questioning it now. And I'm like, oh, that's strange, because surely that could not even be a question. But it actually is a question. And even the fact that we would even consider it, I know most people probably wouldn't, but if you actually look into it, you know, right or wrong, that's just an example. And I'm not saying, and if it proved that it's all rubbish, then that kind of makes it mean that you shouldn't look into anything else. But in reality, there are a million things that we should actually think about, because it is what you're told or what you think to be true. Because that's what you've been told from school. Like, school indoctrinates you. I've always said that school indoctrinates. I mean, I couldn't stand school, and basically I didn't learn much. You know, I've learnt now more over the last 6 months than what I learnt for, you know, all my school, and I'm uneducated, so, you know, don't, you know, I'm not, you know, but the thing is that even with education, if it's limited what they're actually teaching you, or even not correct what they're teaching you, like someone said to me recently, you know, I saw it on the thing there, you know, like if Darwin's theory of evolution is rubbish, and it's never been proved, but we take all these things to be true. And I mean, whether it's the whole history, and obviously none of these things are the whole history, there's a lot of loopholes. These are just small examples, but I'm saying once you start to look into a few things, which I never have, and I've never really cared to, it's only because I think everything is such a catastrophe that I'm now looking into it, because I'm seeing all this disaster like right under my face now, like it's in your face, and a lot of stuff is actually in your face. It is actually, yeah, as they say, hidden but in plain sight, but we just don't see it because it's so much in our face that we think it can't be real. Like if something is pushed right into your face, you tend to think, oh, it's out in the open, so therefore it's not a trick, it's not a camouflage. Whereas a lot of the stuff that is right in your face is actually the real truth, and you're looking elsewhere and thinking that's the truth. But you think because it's in your face and because then it gets disputed, that therefore it can't be true. And I'm not going to go into examples, but basically a lot of stuff is really shown to you, but we just accept it and we don't question. We don't question. We don't actually, like I say, we don't question anything. These days we're almost like, oh, this is the right thing to do because we're told it. Like I mentioned that example of the gay marriage, even though I have no opinions on that one way or the other. I don't really think it's a big issue in this world at all. I think it's a diversion, quite frankly. And I think I like to see people happy, so I wouldn't say for anyone not to be able to do anything. But I do think it's a total diversion. It's a non-issue topic, even though I know for some of the people involved, they made a big thing out of it. Like I say, it should have been solved a long time ago anyway. But I've lost my train of thought now. Like I say, I'm not the smartest kid on the block by a long shot. I'm certainly no kid, but and I've got a lot of outside noises, distracting me. A lot of interference, probably technologically and physically, whatever. But a lot of things are, like those issues where we think that they are the important thing, and they are a diversion. I've lost that train of thought that I had. I was just going to use that as an example for something else because I don't think that it's really relevant at all, really. But there is that kind of thing where we go along with everything, like people who are not gay, for instance, who have no interest in it. Like myself, like even if I was gay, I'm not interested. It's just not a topic. I do not think it's important. But if they bring it up and then people sort of make an issue about it, you're like, oh, well, yeah, okay, it's important. I better vote on that. I better let people have their little freedom to where they can do because they've been suppressed and all this sort of stuff. And you buy into that. And you think, hey, yeah, it's I've got to go along with that, and that's what I'm saying is that people they get seduced into the idea of things to think that that's somehow something they should think about, when actually, if it's probably not something they should really even be thinking too much about either way. You know what I'm saying? It's like important for someone if they do think it's important, if they want it, but the fact that these things become big issue for everyone, and some people might say, oh, isn't that good, because we should all think about everyone else and raise these points. And I say yes, but I think that it's only the few points that they let us raise that almost seem to be pushed onto us, instead of us thinking about everything, because they don't want us to think about everything, do they? No. And they want us to then go along a certain line of a freedom where we lower almost to where, maybe we could even be like thinking of, not so much that, but like, oh yeah, well, perhaps there's not much difference between the sexes. Yes, perhaps the genders should be more neutral. Perhaps we shouldn't think too much about masculine and feminine and all this stuff. And that would be very easy to do. Even I have done that quite a lot of my life. For me, just naturally. But now I'm sort of saying, hey, regardless of whether I see myself as feminine or masculine, because I was born female, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to promote that feminine stuff now, even if I don't believe in it. I'm going to do that just to make sure that we don't lose it all. Even though I don't personally believe in it, just like I don't believe in the gay or the trans or any of this stuff. I think it's all rubbish. It's not important, but it becomes important if they make it important, if it's going to be used for another agenda to change the whole way society operates, not freedom. You see, if it was about freedom, I would be for it, because I'm all about being individual, different, good, freedom. But it's not about that. I believe it's about controlling everyone and conforming them and making them into a non-gender, non-human-like way of thinking and being. That's what I think. I could be insane, take it with a grain of salt if you will. So it's not about that, because I would act, if it was about, to me, if it was about freedom and everyone being individual and everyone being able to do what they need to themselves and what they feel is good for them, even if they just want to exercise that freedom, I'm for that. But I don't think it is that. I think it's like they're saying, oh, it's free to be this way. We're giving you that freedom. But I do not think that. I think, as I say, I think if you take the premise that I do, that it's all a control thing and that it's all a computer program put onto us, more or less, then if I choose to be gay, transgender, Mickey Mouse, I'm not choosing it. It's been plonked onto me. And this raises a very, very, very difficult. I can't believe I'm smiling for once, but it raises a very. That's the dog. He's not quite as normal as what dogs are. Even the dogs get affected these days. But it raises a very, very, very confusing and interesting thing, because then you have to say, well, hey, like I said before, where do you start then if you sort of say, hey, if there's so much put onto you and it appears to be offering a little bit more choice and freedom, then you have to say, look, what direction are you supposed to take? That's the thing. It's like, should you be opposed to things that you would naturally like to agree to? And my answer to that is, personally, I would say probably. In other words, if you feel that you are a butch, masculine, gay lady, I would say trick the computer control world we live in, and pretend to be in love with the ultra feminine female form. I don't mean like in love with it, because obviously if you were that, you probably. I mean like promote that as the way to be. In other words, that's actually doing the opposite to what you would even perhaps naturally think. But I think because we are so, I'm just trying to say is to think about the fact that sometimes even yourself could be a party to something else that is not so good. It's a bit like I've seen some of these people now saying, oh, well, I'm neither this nor that. You see, they think that's good because they think that's being open-minded, saying, oh, well, we shouldn't be masculine or feminine, male or female. They think that's being broad-minded and open-minded because that's how it would appear to be. But in reality, if it's part of the computer program to condition them to blur the sexes for a reason, so there's more control over the sexes, then that is not freedom or choice or being open-minded, you see, because it's you being told that. It's a big mind, I could use a word. I've heard people say mind something. I don't like to use those words because I could go into that, but recently they've been telling me that it's all frequency vibration. So what you speak is a frequency and a vibration. So if you're using bad words, or even if the English language is not a very positive vibration, we probably could be creating a lot even with that. That's another thing which I do not fully understand. But once again, these days, now that I'm on my last legs, I'm open to everything. And the more you open yourself up to things and start to just question and think about things, it does open up a lot of possibilities. I only wish I'd done this when I had time and when I was younger, because it could have made my life a lot better. Knowledge, real knowledge, truthful knowledge, not the computer program that we're presented with, that we're controlled by. Real knowledge, which we don't have, but some how should I say? I suppose I'd have to say the people who control things, controllers, whether you want to use them as the people you see, or the people behind the people you see, or the entities behind people see, because I don't think that they're human, to be quite frank, because regardless of whether you want to say that they're, this or that, they're not human either way. You know what I'm saying? Some people might, I've heard some people say all sorts of things, but the thing is that they're not human. It's a bit like saying, is a particular leader or politician, was Adolf Hitler human? That's for you to answer that question. So what I'm saying is, regardless of what form they take, it's what's inside that head that determines the humanity and the thinking and the intelligence and how they're using the technology and how they're using this computer-generated control world. So, that's what I'm saying. And if you think, as I've said, I think I said in the first video, if you think you're free, then you're definitely not, because we're not free. And once you actually are under the illusion that because you are given a little vote here and there, and because you can choose your sexuality these days, you're not choosing it, it's being bombarded into you. If certain celebrities are saying, hey, wear this and that, and if you had been left naturally without all this bombardment of mind control media stuff, you would have probably just been a boring little old straight person, or boring little this or that, but you'd have been happy. If that was your natural path. But then you start getting all these ideas pumped into you. Oh yeah, maybe we should try this, maybe, this is not, I'm not saying you shouldn't be free to do things, but I'm saying this is not really your idea, because you are copying someone else. You are being manipulated mentally by the ideas, the fashion. Even fashion is something that is controlled by other people. That's just a small example, like the ice bucket thing. That's just an example of how silly we can be, and that's what I'm saying. So it's really like, it's no good saying you're free and that you determine everything, when really, if you really just realise it, and I realise this, I say, hey, my whole life has been controlled. My whole life has been ruined and manipulated by others, by the powers that be, by the environment, by the media, by everything that has this computer-generated world has been. Even before the computer was invented, I was still mind control, because then it was TV or by people around you. Or the world around you, should I say. If you were just left to yourself, I wonder how we would all be. I'm sure that we'd be different. I know I would have been different, and I know I would have, expanded myself much more. I couldn't have been more closed into a box during my whole life. So I have to say, even if I had even a little bit more intelligence or a little bit more awareness, that I would have done, made a much better life, because, now it's like, it's like the end of it almost, and it's now, because the world has changed so much, there's very little way out almost. So it's very, all I'm saying is that, I'm just saying it, if anyone is there, just start thinking for yourself. Don't let everything slide, and take a look around and actually question everything. Everything you look at, everything you see. Examine everything. Everything you watch on the TV, every movie you see, every time you put something on here, on anything. Look at it, think about it. Say, do I want this? in my mind. Do I think it's okay? I mean, even there again, because we have been so trained to everything, it's easy to say, oh, I think this is good. I think this is freedom. I think this is the way to go. I've looked at a few celebrities even in recent times and seen their stuff and thought, oh, that's really interesting. That's okay. And now I'm like, oh, now I'm actually sort of thinking about it, saying that video looked really cool, as they say today. That looked really fun. That looked really free. That looked really interesting. That was fascinating. That was a broad way of doing something. That was mysterious. That appealed to even my little liking of the old horror movie or something. That little satanic stuff, that was quite attractive in that video. That was this or that. I'm being, and I'm like, hey, I'm being seduced by it. I like it, and then I sort of stop and say, hey, why is that woman saying she'd rather be a boy? Why is that woman singing or saying, why is she hitting, damaging things? Why is she promoting a kind of destructive thing? It looks so empowering almost, but it's actually destructive. See, it's that double thing. You take it to be empowering, but in a way it's encouraging you to be aggressive and destructive. That's how I'm now seeing it. I'm saying I've changed my way of looking at things because I'm seeing it. You can see it one way or you can see it another way. What I'm saying is, what is the way they are really wanting you to see it? Do they really want you to see it as somehow empowering or freedom or more broadening? Or is it the opposite, restricting you and making you negative and destructive and question your identity? And making you think that, because the world has changed quite a lot. And even, I was telling my son, and hey, that's another thing where you notice the differences between age and the frustration. And I get that because, but you can learn a lot. I can learn a lot though, just the same. But I only wish I'd done this years and years ago. But I've lost my train of thought again. I was thinking about the videos and different stuff. I was just thinking that, I was trying to think that, it just occurred to me that I was reading a little book that I'd had for years and years and years, and it was about Marilyn Monroe. She's a very feminine woman, a very well-known, very iconic and whatever, and all this sort of stuff, and it was written by a lady called Gloria Steinem, who's like a feminist type one, and she's written it about Marilyn Monroe, who's probably, we might think of her as perhaps the opposite to that. I don't know, but I'm not sure. But I was reading it because, and I've got an open mind about it, and I'm thinking, hey, she's very much presenting this kind of feminist, derogatory view of someone else that probably was just as free thinking as her. I mean, we're all mind controlled. I mean, even Gloria, what's her name? She's mind controlled too, because she's presenting a certain thing. She's not open. She's thinking that, we're all, women are all suppressed and all this sort of stuff. She's making women think that they're all suppressed and this and that what they got is no good. Whereas maybe she's part of the mind control too. Maybe she's mind controlled because maybe she's not happy. She's thinking that, if some woman isn't out there slaving like the silly sucker male type of thing that's been doing it for years, that there's something wrong with her. That she has to be out there. Leave the kids, bugger the kids type of thing. Let the state bring them up. Let them brainwash them. It's. I don't think that I think that even the feminists, that kind of. when I was reading the book, I'm thinking, gee, she's just doing nothing but criticising someone else who's struggled and at least, tried to make a bit of a better life themselves, regardless of whether she was this or that too. I mean, it was like I just felt that there was that smart-ass tone of her, like being uppity about someone else that, Marilyn Monroe's supposed to be an icon, so, Gloria Steinem, I mean, I don't know much about her at all. I don't even know. I've seen a few pictures of her, and I get personally, I get a bit of a negative vibe, but that's just me. But I'm saying that, all these people that are, like even I saw a women's rally with all these celebrities there with all this stuff, and I'm thinking, why are they doing feminist stuff? Like, surely Madonna doesn't have to stand up for feminism, I mean, she's controlled the masses for 100 years, with all her, with her view of sexuality and life and whatever, I mean, I used to like all this stuff, and I used to like some of the videos and some of the songs, so don't get me wrong, I did. I was controlled too by it. It's just that now I sort of think, oh, well, they're still doing it when they're way over the hill. They're these people that want to go into the cyborg stuff because they want to go on forever, because they want to keep controlling the masses forever. Even though they're little old, 150 years old, I'm sure Madonna would still want to be out there in, semi-naked, pushing her, whatever it is she's pushing, I don't know, but they do. They. I mean, I can remember when people rushed out to buy that ridiculous sex book. I had a look at it myself, and I'm like, what in the hell is in it? Nothing. People are lining up for it. I'm thinking it's just full of rubbish. A few pictures. They weren't even particularly sensational. It was all a gimmick, and cost people money, and they're wasting their time and their thing. But also some of the pictures, if you looked at them, even though they weren't particularly racy at all, they were promoting the idea that you can do anything and anything, like that, it's okay for the young girl to go with the dirty old man, and it's okay for this. That was a few of the pictures that I saw, even though they were quite nicely packaged, naturally, because, naturally they got the money to take some good photos. But even that, it just come back to me that it was, I mentioned names, and I shouldn't mention celebrities' names. I don't like to, really. I mean, I say good luck to them, but I do wonder if even they're really pushing their own ideas, or if it's just not. It's just like selling clothes, They're always trying to sell something, people. It's one thing to say, oh, I like a song or something, and even that, who knows. Music can even be very influential, I'm not even to know. Personally, I wonder if even the, I've never looked into it. I think that'd be a scientific thing, but I wonder if even the particular music, the vibrations and the words and the whole actual, like I say, vibration and frequency that they say is so important, evidently. This is a mind control thing too. Music can be very much mind control. I mean, the fact that you can't get a song out of your head sometimes, even if you hear just a little bit of it. I know that myself. Isn't it so annoying when you go into a shop and you hear a piece of music and you didn't even choose that, for that matter. It's sort of, there again, it's plonked onto you. It's the computer-generated world we live in. You go in there, you didn't even choose that song, but then you've got it in your head for at least the rest of the day, maybe even a few days. It might even pop up. See, this is the mind. So if you think that the mind cannot be controlled and manipulated by everything around you, I mean, that's just an example. I mean, it happens to us all every day of the week. It's happened to me all my life. And, I've often been really annoyed, to be honest, when I've heard the same tune going round and round in your head. You're like, oh, I didn't even want to. I didn't even pick that song, and yet there it is. And there it is in my head. And, so that can happen. Basically, everything can be put into our head is a computer too. We're supposed to exercise a bit more control over it. But if we don't think and we just mindlessly kind of accept everything and think, oh, that sounds good. That sounds like freedom. these people are doing it. They're good people. They're this, they're that. Oh, I'm impressed by that, because we are. I mean, I've been impressed by it all my life. It's so easy to let it just go into your head and it becomes part of your thinking, but it's actually not your thinking. It's what you're been programmed to think. Too late for me, everybody, but hey, for some of you that might be a bit younger than me and might not have quite as bad of circumstances, because my circumstances are not so great. It may not be a way out for me, but hey, I'm just saying, maybe for some of you there is. But even if there isn't, you can still exercise a little bit of control about your choices and about your environment and question things, because if enough of you do it, particularly if you're younger, you really then are taking control of your world. You're not letting it just be where you will be taken over by everything else, artificial or otherwise, technology or otherwise. You will be at least observing and making that choice, because you'll be noticing it, and you'll be, at least even if you look at things and question them, and I think, everything you look at and everything you see around you should question and say, why? Is this what I really think is the truth, or is this really good? Is this me? It's hard to know what's us now, to be honest, it really is, because if you think, even like I might think, hey, so many things that I've liked over the years, if I have to question them, and they've become part of my being in a way, because I've liked them for so long, and I've thought they were what they were for so long, if I have to then say, hey, maybe, dare I say that, like if you've admired someone, say, which I'm not saying we should really admire anyone, perhaps we should, most people should probably really admire themselves first, but I'm not talking about being vain or being to where you're selfish and you just love yourself and it's kind of false, but I'm saying that we do admire people like to have role models and all this sort of stuff, and then if you discover that all your role models are all false and wrong and not what you thought, you know what I'm saying, a bit like, you discover things about them maybe, or you realise that maybe even their stuff was, like that if they were acting phony and presenting a false thing, like if I criticise a particular person, or particularly, when I say a person, I mean like someone who's in the public eye, because I think if you're in the public eye, you are open to that in a way, aren't you? Because if you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to be doing things, you're telling other people what to do, you're doing things, you're expressing yourself, so I think other people are probably entitled to have their opinion about what they think about it, but if I do see, some well-known people, projecting a false thing, and I've actually kind of admired that person or copied them or whatever and thought they were genuine, it's very hard to, you have to then say, well, I was wrong, but you weren't wrong, you were just, that was the information you were given, and it was false, but how can you tell? You can't tell. When you're watching a movie and you're watching an actor, and they're really convincing, because that's their trade. It's the same with all these people that are in the public eye. That's their living, that's their trade. They're actors. So of course they're going to be convincing. They could fool anyone, how can you tell if someone's, crying and doing good stuff, that they're doing it all for an ulterior motive, or that their tears are not real? I mean, actors' tears are not real, and even if they are, they're done by a method. They're not, it's all a false concoction, you can't tell. You cannot tell. You cannot tell. That's what I'm saying. You cannot tell. It's like it's like the old movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I was looking at the other day. Like, if people get taken over and they change and they're really not what they appear to be, you can't tell. You can't tell because they will act the same as the bad person or the naughty person that doesn't give a damn will act just as genuine as the person who really would give their heart and do anything. You can't tell the difference. If you think you can, you're probably, you're like me. I've been duped all my life by people like that. So if you think that, you're already perhaps on the path to being duped a bit more. You do have to. But particularly what I'm saying is people in the public eye, because they have the ability to seduce and control and manipulate us all. Whereas if it's at a personal level, at least you can try and figure it out. But anyway, I better close off now because I've got to get